I was going to just catch up with you today and find out all about Studio Fade. So, how did you guys meet? And tell me a little bit about Studio Fade and how it started.
Okay. So we met maybe 3 years ago, through a mutual friend. That sort of put us in touch. I started Studio Fade 10 years ago, actually 11 years ago, and with another friend, and then we went on our own separate ways. And I met Anna, and we clicked, and we thought that it was great to collaborate together and work. We were working on a project that she had on, and so I helped her out, and then we collaborated in a few other projects, and then she joined Studio Fate. So
it was a very sort of
yeah,
natural. We met up, and I needed help with the project, and it worked right away. And then it sort of developed into we actually enjoy working together, and I think we complement each other quite well. And yeah, it's sort of since then, 3 years, actually exactly 3 years.
Yeah,
now,
I think so. Yes.
So it's kind of a very natural path. It was really nice, and it was of course nice because Studio Fade was already set up. It was sort of for me really good to joining sort of something that has really existed for quite a while, and so that was really good.
That sounds great. And do you have some kind of ethos for the company?
Well, I mean, I think we take every project on its own, and so we want to maximize the time we spend onto these projects and giving our own, our own. How would you say it? I guess it's every project. It's sort of like a bespoke project for us, and so we want to keep it as a small practice, to being able to give the full attention from start to finish. And it doesn't matter if it's a small joinery design or a large house conversion. We take the time and the care to provide a good service.
Yeah, because we believe that sort of people always ask sort of what's your style, and I say, well, that's not really relevant because at the end of the day, especially in the private sector, that you as a client, you know how you want to live, you know yourself best. What we do is we take what kind of your ideas and desires and kind of the way you want to live, and we then look at your either something that you want to buy or that you already own and try to make that reality. So it's not about our style and our preference. It's we are kind of trained to put something into a three-dimensional space, but with the ideas from our clients. So that's why we say every project is sort of bespoke and unique, because every client is unique. And of course, some houses kind of are sort of similar. So we then, because we are kind of trained to looking at plans and we do it a lot, we then sometimes already know, oh, okay, you can maybe do this and this and that. But at the end of the day, people have different ways of living and they have different kind of families and the way they want to use the space. And we are just there to kind of put that into reality. That's sort of our job. So we kind of take, and also each place has its unique specialities. So that's why we also train at kind of looking at stuff and seeing what potential is there and what kind of can you with, because of course building is expensive and it takes a long time. So what is with minimal effort have maximum space, maximum life,
maximum impact.
Yeah.
So you kind of tailor it to each client's and each building's special requirements and budget, and and you try and do like minimum work for maximum impact kind of thing, or take their ideas and make it maximum impact.
Yes, even if it's a small, even with a small brief, that could be just one room, you want to make the most of it and try to, as you're saying, to have the maximum impact and fit it within the whole house, the whole flat, and just tailor-made, are designed to suit the needs, the scope, and also what's the surroundings as well. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
because each space has sort of its own limitations. We
Mhm.
always say sometimes when you buy a house, the real estate agent said, you can always extend another. And in reality, really often, if there is already an extension, like you are limited in what you're allowed to do and what you can do and what is also feasible in terms of
Yeah.
how long it's going to take. So sort of we are also there to give kind of also a realistic, that's sort of, I think, also something we like to give a very realistic approach to it, because a lot of in the construction world, especially at the beginning, if people want to get a project, they kind of promise you everything is possible, and then people think that with a very little budget you can kind of build a 3-story extension. And we kind of give a realistic approach to what is possible within a budget as well, because we believe in transparency, and that building is expensive, and I think it's really important to be upfront with costs, because otherwise people get in situations, and then all kind of the bad experience that people have is if they're not realistic about the costs. And I think sort of people don't like to talk about money. People have unrealistic expectations. People ask around. Friends tell them sort of they're ashamed sometimes of what you have spent, and then sort of there's an unrealistic approach to it, and then that doesn't lead to a successful project, in my opinion. I think it's important to stay realistic about time and costs.
Yeah, transparency is really important, isn't it? So what kind of things have you done already, like together or even apart? What projects have you done, or what are the ones that are memorable to you?
So we've done mainly, we work on residential, and we worked at all different stages, as I said. So I think we had several whole refurbishment of houses in a bit all over London, really, because the clients do come in a lot as word of mouth, friends of friends, so which is always great because it's great to get recommended by clients who've been happy with our services.
Mhm.
So from big houses to small flats, and we had done recently, we completed a refurbishment of a house, and we concentrated on transforming an already pre-existing. So this is the case that they wanted to extend. That we couldn't get a permit because it was again a very complex conservation area, lots of difficulties. We refurbished the loft and change it so for them to use it properly as a child playroom and a guest bedroom, but giving it the flexibility. So creating a moving wall, designing bespoke joinery throughout the walls, and the space changed completely. So it was really satisfying for us as well to see how the space was so unutilized that it was a bit, how the loft always often is the dump of, throwing everything in there. And that was, it was really nice because with our input, they were able to make the most of that top floor of the house, and now starting to use it because they just had a new baby as a playroom for the older one, and when needed uses as a guest, or then it becomes a massive room for the kids when they grow up. So it's really nice and satisfying. So again, small job, but a lot of impact within the full use of the house. So it was really nice. And then we've done a lot of feasibility. We also do provide this service that I think is quite interesting, which is called a pre-purchase survey. So we take clients when they go with the estate agent to view the property, and generally is when they are really considering buying the property. We go around with them, and then either we provide them a verbal, we sit down with them after the viewing, and we provide them our assessment. And as Anna said, trying to be realistic, because a lot of people, especially if it's their first home, they don't know what are the costs, and estate agent or word of mouth, the word around is a bit simplistic, because obviously they want to complete the sales, make the but if it's a house is, for example, 1 million, and it needs a complete refurbishment, you need to take into consideration all the different costs, all the body that will be involved, so the consultant. So we offer this service and give you an idea of what you could get out of the property, so how you can potentially extend, improve, change based on your needs, and also an outline budget cost of what you should factor in when you purchase the property on top of that, if you want to refurbish it. So that's something that we've worked together, we've done, and we're trying to do it more, because I think it's a very useful thing.
Because sometimes people think you only need an architect when you really want to build, like when you already have set kind of a way of sort of, if you already know you want to build in the next few months, then I need a planning permission. Actually, this is when people think I need an architect because I need a planning permission. Whereas we think sort of, as I sort of said before, because this is what we're trained to sort of visualize things that you kind of want in your head, but you're not able to, sometimes not even able to verbalize correctly. But so we have a way of asking questions, and this is probably what I like most about it. When people come to us, they think they want something, but then through discussions, they discover that actually they want something else. And that you then sort of, by kind of really asking, what do you really want to do with this space? And then they kind of list some qualities, and then we sort of dig kind of deeper, and then we sort of develop the brief together. So this is why the project that she mentioned earlier, initially they just said, we want to use this room. And then we kind of talked about, okay, what do you really want to use it for? And then we kind of came up with this sort of kids' bedroom and guest bedroom split thing, that then when they have sort of, I think they were thinking about another kid, could they use with more kids? And this is probably what I like most about our job, is kind of also discovering the brief together. And sort of, we had one project that I like to think about where they were thinking about converting the annex for, I think, his elderly parents who wanted to move in. And they said, there is already a kitchen, we want to refurbish the kitchen, and we have a living room and a bedroom, and this is what we want to do. And we came up with kind of these different scenarios, how you could use the rooms. And they were always said, we want the kitchen where the kitchen is now, because it has to be kind of an enclosed space. This is really important to us. We still offered kind of one option where we used that room for something else. And then we suddenly had this spare room next to their bedroom, where when they looked at the plans, they were like, oh my God, this could be our prayer room. And they never mentioned a prayer room before. But suddenly, because they saw a plan which they never considered before, they then went for the option where they at the beginning said, this is definitely not what we don't want to do. But suddenly there was a possibility of something that they were probably hoping for in the back of their minds, but they weren't able to verbalize it. And that was really nice for me to see that sometimes you can think a little bit, we kind of help people to think maybe a little bit outside of their comfort zone and the box, and that suddenly with the right floor plan, some things become possible that they weren't thinking about before. And sort of sometimes we push people to sort of allow us for, can we also make, another option, how you can use the space differently? Because maybe you then see a scenario that you weren't thinking about before. And I think that was really nice for me, that I could see, okay, we can really add something. Like, I still remember when they looked at the plans, oh my God, this is what we want to do. This is the prayer room we always wanted. And that was kind of nice to see, if somebody, goes for an option that they at the beginning weren't open to, but then so that's why we like to be involved at the beginning. We like to help that's why we like doing feasibility studies, we think it's important to allocate a lot of time at the beginning to kind of see what are the potentials. And people don't really realize that this is what we do as well as architects, because they think we only come in sort of with the
yes, exactly. The feasibility study is something that we enjoy doing, and we've done it several times, that to help the client understand whether or not they need to extend. Sometimes you don't need to extend. That just maybe sometimes opening up a wall will create that large room, or closing a, a large room will add a room that you really needed to become a study. So that's what we do, and we have been involved a lot in the past. Clients just come up and ask us, what could we do, and they give us a brief, and just like Anna said, not necessarily we come up always with the 3, sometimes 4, options that sometimes obviously they always meet your brief and your demands and your requests, but also will give you, let's say, a jolly option, or like make you think of an alternative or something to add that we think you should consider. And then sometimes you could, you take it on board, sometimes you don't. So yes, so I think it's a very good exercise, and it's something that we really enjoy doing. So yeah.
That's really interesting.
And it's compared to sort of the building costs. Those costs, these initial costs, are not compared to what you then have to spend sort of on building, are actually pretty low. So it's not like that a feasibility study costs a lot of money. It's sort of, but people are sometimes a little bit hesitant to sort of allow themselves to spend money on figuring out what do I really need and want. And I think it's sort of better to invest that sort of a little bit early on, to then, once you kind of come to a builder, you then have an actual brief, a concept, a plan, and that then the costs don't go up. Because some people then, only once they start building, they figure out, oh, actually, they could also open up here and there, and then the building costs explode, because then you don't have any control over it anymore. And then you think, okay, I'm on site anyway now, and then suddenly it doesn't become manageable. And building is tough and it's exhausting, especially if it's in your private home. It's a lot more exhausting than people sometimes realize at the beginning. It's worth it, but it is a lot. So I think sort of starting early up and figuring out what you really want, to then kind of secure and know what you really want to spend on, is sort of worth it. And this is something we would like people to sort of realize, that it's worth spending a little bit early on, to then actually realize, to then build what you really need.
Yeah, it sounds like you do a really thorough job of finding and drawing out everything from the client. And then like everybody gets a lot more satisfaction from the whole project in the end, including you, because new things are discovered and the client gets, it's a proper job, it's not cutting any corners. So that's good. But so what kind of challenges have you faced with your business, would you say?
Well,
challenges?
I think, yes, I think lately, I think is, as we said, we generally get a client through word of mouth of recommendation, and from at times from a larger practice as referral. We find that currently it seems a little bit quieter. So, and I think the other challenge is just being a small practice, that you're sort of doing everything. You're doing your admin, you're doing your social media, you're doing your website, you're doing all these things. And so you have all these hats, and sometimes what the hat of a designer to concentrate on the design is sort of put aside, because you need to do all these other things. And at times, you wish, all the rest could be either done magically by someone else, or, the administrative side can impact on your flow, and take away from our actual job as designer. But it's also a learning curve, and you need to know these things. And I think it's very interesting as well how certain things work, and you understand what you like of these side administrative and what you don't. Yes.
Yeah, some of it is a bit tiresome, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, you said mostly your clients like a word of mouth or referred from bigger practices, and this partnership with estate agents sounds quite good. So do you partner with different estate agents and kind of do that feasibility?
Yeah. No, we haven't partnered with any estate agent yet. It usually has been that the client directly come to us, but we have considered that, and so we think that that would be a very useful partnership to have. And we've just recently updated our website, so now that we have everything in one place, and we are ready to, go and contact and be a bit more proactive on the advertising side. Yes.
Yeah, so this is something that we are planning to expand. That's kind of probably one of our sort of expansion projects within the next year, is to develop relationships in that way further, because I think it's sort of it would be nice to collaborate with real estate agents on that, because I think there is sort of a market. There is a market. I think they would also benefit from our expertise in that sense. So I think it's something we would like to develop further.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good, and I'm sure it's something that can work as well. And do you have any other kind of goals for the next, any ultimate goals? What's your ultimate goal with your business, and then maybe your smaller realistic ones? But what was the dream? Are you just you're happy to have I think from what I understand, you like it being kind of small and personal and bespoke, and obviously you just want to always be doing beautiful projects. But am I right, or is there something else? What's your goal?
No, you're correct. I mean, I think we like to have a good amount of projects, but not too many, because we want to have the time to concentrate and give our best to each one of them. And so that's the important thing. So even if we were to grow, I don't know, but I think we spoke about it, but I wouldn't want, a big firm where you sort of lose the personal touch. So we always want to being able to provide a sort of boutique service to each client. So that's definitely the case. And yes, of course, a current flow of project, it would always be, useful, and we would appreciate, larger home, more complex home, maybe, it's more unusual. What it tends to be is it's generally always, extension, Victorian house, when you get like a odd studio or a new floor plate, it's always very exciting. So these things are always because it's a new challenge. So new challenge are always very welcome, and it sort of takes, so things are not, you don't get bored, you keep yourself on your toes, and you explore new things. So that's for sure what I would love to have, new challenge for sure. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even I would love to venture out kind of into maybe a commercial. I would love to do a store. I mean, we do sort of also a lot of interior design projects. So not only the architecture side, but really also the interior side, and maybe doing something like that. That would be also, I think, a really nice challenge, and probably having sort of enough projects that we might be able to outsource the social media. I don't know.
Yes,
something like that.
Yes, and the administrative. So have a regular flow that will allow us to sort of do enough of the administrative side, what we can manage, but also what we like to do, and outsource what we don't like to do. So that would be yes, probably the ideal thing. But also one thing that I would like to improve, and probably in the coming year, is get more confident at using, I think we spoke about it last time we chatted, using AI.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and how we've started using it for concept, but there's so many ways even to just optimize your time, helping you. It can, I think I personally want to get more confident at using it as a tool, and don't feel that it's a foe or it's taking away from my job, but actually using it to improve my time at work, really.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, because it's really interesting how in the last year even sort of these AI tools have, on the one hand, you kind of read all these articles, all the jobs are going to disappear because AI is going to, it's going to be instead of us. But I do think sort of, at least at the moment, you can really use it to produce kind of visualization images at an early stage that help the client kind of to get an idea of what is possible in the current, especially if it's sort of a renovation project, what it might look like. And I do think sort of a lot of people have problems reading a plan because it's sort of, it's sort of our daily bread. So we, of course, train to, but I do think for a lot of people, it's kind of difficult to really visualize if you have sort of a floor plan. And even if you have kind of an image where we kind of say, okay, this is sort of what it sort of looked like, but of course you have to kind of disregard this and this and that. A lot of people can't really do that. If they see an image, they think this is exactly what they get. So by using AI, you kind of really can create these realistic images on an early stage because they're produced really quickly. Because of course you can build everything in 3D, but it takes a long time, and then the costs of a feasibility study kind of go through the roof. But with these tools, I think it's sort of it's going to be really, really helpful, and I think that's sort of such an interesting thing that has only come up actually within the last year, and I think it's wonderful. So I think it's really something one should use, and it doesn't take away because you still need the ideas and our images in the head are still have to come up with them anyway. So it's not like
well, you need to feed the right text. You need to know what the machine has to do. So without that, it wouldn't, without our input, the machine start creating random things. So obviously, yes.
So it's a bit like sort of in the 90s when the computers were sort of developed in the architectural programs on a computer, or the CAD programs, and suddenly everybody was drawing sort of on a computer and not by hand. On the one hand, it changed everything because suddenly you didn't need 100 draftsmen drawing a plan, and one plan was worth so much money because to copy it was took a long time. On the other hand, people still have to draw the plan. So, you still need somebody who is able to come up with it. So it's sort of, I think, a similar transition probably like it was at the end of the 90s when suddenly this became kind of used CAD more and more and more. Now, of course, everybody uses it. And I think it's probably going to be a similar shift that just changes the way that we work, but it's still, the intellectual property is still there, but I think it's just going to be a real benefit, especially in the early stages, which we like to use. So
I mean, how does that work? I'm really fascinated by this. How does that work? Is it special certain apps that you use and you talk to?
So there's several programming software you can use. Some are free, some are you pay for them. We use Midjourney. Which is a paid one, and you sort of feed, it's an app, you feed the chatbot, the chat, what you want. So let's say you're working in a space, you want to provide, instead of having all these Pinterest photos that sometimes are difficult to find the exact one, okay, let's say, you want to show a fireplace in a Victorian house with 2 alcove and some joinery, okay, and you can feed that into Pinterest ideas, but you might find the right one, you might not. So you feed that to Midjourney bot, and it will come up with 4 options, and then you start adding a description, more details. So let's say you want a walnut finish for the joinery, you want to show, Carrara marble. So then the more detail you add, the better it is. And then you can say, obviously, if you say in the style of some particular designer, then ideally you should state that when you show the photos ethically. I mean, there's an ethical thing, we are transparent with the client and we say what we used. And then you can then modify it. There are other software as well, but I mean, you can also use it, and this is other like ChatGPT and Gemini, to do, to-do list, to create, outline for program for a project. You know what you want, you're feeding the right information in, and then that will be then provided. But you need to be careful, the machine is still the machine. It uses a language that is not necessarily the language that you would normally use. So you need to edit. So it's not that you feed that. And so the same in regards to the drawings, it might not be perfect. So you might still have to do some editing on the with other softwares, but it's a good start, and it saves time. So in terms of quality work, quality life, it's good, because in a way it helps you, instead of sitting hours and hours trying to find the perfect photo, editing it. It gives you in 5 minutes, it gives you, I don't know, 10, 15 images. And then you can edit it very quickly, if you need to. It might be the perfect one, so.
Yeah, and sometimes it's then even with sort of really simple things that you could, of course, do before, also in Photoshop, that you then say, okay, I want the picture, I want to have that wall color or that wallpaper, but it just looks a lot more realistic, and it's a lot quicker. You can also show a lot more options in a quicker time, which saves kind of more time to do sort of the conceptual work behind it.
So you think it's kind of better than Photoshop in some instances?
It is sort of it is Photoshop.
It is Photoshop.
It is kind
but
of.
You just speak to it, and then it does what you ask it to do, basically, instead of having to.
Yeah, but you still have to learn. It's kind of like when Google appeared, and you could Google everything. You had to know, especially at the beginning, what you put into Google to actually get a result, and then you still have to check. And this is, with Google as well. You can't just take the first thing that come up, because they might be ads, and you have to kind of use your brain and go through it. So it's a similar thing. You can feed, even if you feed the right thing, you still have to then read through it and really see.
Yeah, you do.
Is this really actually what you can't just take the first thing that comes up of Google, because that's mostly an ad that somebody paid for. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it fits whatever you put in. So it's kind of similar. Even if you feed the right information, you still have to look at it and then sort of edit it. And at the end of the day, it is kind of like Photoshop.
I mean, lots of
the Photoshop combined with like a 3D software. But yes.
I'm fascinated. I'll have a look at some point.
No, you're gonna have a go.
I'll have a look.
AI is the free one.
I've never found any of the 3D softwares easy myself.
No, neither.
I don't find that easy at all, and it takes a whiz kid straight out of uni, I find, just to go whoo, and then it's done, and they're really fast and really good at it. But I've never been able to do that, and it's amazing. It sounds too good to be true, but lots of people in the general public, some people don't know how to look up things on Google, even with words. So how would they know how to go to the level that you're looking at? You know what I mean? So it does take a lot of expertise, and lots of people would not be confident at doing all of that, and they wouldn't want to. So it's interesting. It's just really interesting. It's really neat. It's not that niche, because we're, lots of people are interior designers, but it's interesting for us because we live in that world, I guess, a bit more. So, but it is really interesting. And I have yet to even discover it. So it'd be interesting to look. But are there any other like amazing AI things or anything like that you think would cut down work time, or not really?
No, I think, yes, I think that, for example, as I mentioned, ChatGPT and Gemini can help you streamline some parts of your work. Not necessarily email, but like even writing minutes. Like you can write the notes quickly, and then they can provide you minutes, that would normally take you half an hour to 45 minutes to write. And then you go over and you amend whatever, in terms of text.
That's right. So you could
program.
put notes
Yeah.
in, and it would give you a better written version, and then you just read through it and edit it. It's just
Correct.
thinking, just remembering to do this, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that we need
Clever.
to make sure that we don't become too lazy, but it's obviously if you want to optimize
Your time.
certain things, like for us, that we are a small practice, and as we are saying, we have many hats. If you learn how to use it properly, you can really, maximize the time you invest more on the project and the design phase and on what you like to do, and make the most of these tools, I think.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting. Well, I mean, thank you for chatting with me
Thank
about all
you.
of this. It's been really interesting. And it's really good to get to know more about what you're up to at the moment with your studio.
Mhm.
So we should catch up again, in a year's time and see how you're doing.
Yeah.
And
Nice, for sure.
good.
Yes.
All right. Well,